We're going to get the GDP figures in 2 hours' time, Jane. We've been told to, prepare for a slowing economy. Isn't that a good thing when it comes to interest rates?
Well, we're already in a per capita recession. I think we've discussed this one before, Laura. If it wasn't for the fact that we had such excessively high migration numbers, we'd already be seeing economic growth going backwards. Now, if you listen to the economists out there, they're expecting a significant slowdown in our economic growth, and that's not unexpected. That's not unexpected. If you're going to have extraordinarily high energy prices, if you have inflexible industrial relations that discourage people from taking on new employees, and of course, if you have a tax system that sucks the aspiration out of society, and inflation that's run rampant and out of control now for more than 18 months, well, of course you should expect your economic growth to slow down. And what that happens then is that when the pie gets smaller, all that happens is that governments slice it differently rather than growing the pie.
But it also means that inflation is coming down though, right?
Well, you'd want inflation to come down because there's been 12 interest rate rises under this government because inflation has been out of control. When the RBA has to increase, interest rates, use its own monetary policy. Well, you would of course expect the economy to slow down. Consumption in Australia, private sector consumption, is almost at a halt. Public sector consumption, not so much. And that's what we've been talking about when we say there's been one foot on the brake and one foot on the accelerator.
Okay.
Governments keep spending, but unfortunately the private sector is slowing right down, and that of course is going to affect Australia's economic prospects.
You've blamed this Labor government for a number of interest rate rises for fueling that. Will you give them credit when we see cuts this year?
Well, if we see cuts this year, in fact, I was just listening to the radio on the way in, and there is some concern because of this slowdown in economic growth that potentially we might not see. But at the same time, China is continuing to buy our goods, which is a positive sign. It's the only thing that's propping up the economy. That it might actually be longer before we see interest rate cuts. What we do know is that inflation has been higher for longer because of the decisions that the government has made, and interest rates have stayed higher for longer because of the decisions that the government has made, and Australians are paying the price.
All the decisions that the government's made, do you accept that some things are outside of their control?
I have absolutely no doubt that the war in Ukraine was out of their control, but they knew about that before they even came to government. I have no doubt that the conflict in the Middle East has been outside of the government's control, but at the same time, they've failed to address that through any meaningful policy response either. At the same time, these industrial relations reform are slowing the economy right down, putting grit in the wheels and making it harder for businesses to go about what it is that they need to do. Their energy price policies have pushed energy prices up. That affects households and businesses. Of course, we're going to see slowing economic growth, and all Australians will pay for that.
Okay, we will see in about 2 hours and 4 minutes' time. Thanks so much, Jane. We'll catch up with you soon.